2003, a bit of a dead spot in the midst of all those noughties guitar music revivals. Garage rock, post-punk, new metal, which is actually quite convenient for me. 2003 being the year when my focus was very much elsewhere, because this was the year I got married. If you've been there, you'll know how much of a stress these things are to arrange. Family members to accommodate, venues to hire, dresses, suits, food, photographers. But also how much all of that stuff just melts away on the day itself. And the 29th of March was the day families assembled from Wales, from Liverpool, friends from Norwich, from all over. And Michelle and I, well, we did it. Music, of course, did feature that day. A mixture of classical, Ariel M, and Brian Eno for the ceremony. And in the evening, we'd booked one of the UK's premier tribute acts, their words, not mine, in the form of the Beached Boys. And they were actually genuinely fantastic, going down a storm and worth every penny. And after that, what's a wedding without a honeymoon? And Michelle and I, both into art as well as music, set out on a big East Coast trip of the States, Boston, New York City, Philly, and Washington, D.C., taking in every gallery we could find, seeing works by artists that really, if ever, made it across to the UK. And yet we did manage to sneak in a little gig too, seeing the Dirty Three at the Black Cat in Washington, D.C., shortly before we flew home. My band memories are a bit sketchy for this year. The only one I can definitely pull up being a show at the Waterfront in Norwich, supporting a once nominated Mercury Music Prize act, who I won't name here. Yeah, they were all acting a bit Billy Big Shot and standoffish, what with their air-conditioned tour bus and everything. No sour grapes, I hasten to add. They were pretty good. But secretly, I was just over the moon to be finally standing and playing on the same stage I'd seen Kurt Cobain dive off way back in 1990. It's the little things sometimes. Anyway, on with the music, and I'll be rattling through my notable releases at a quicker pace today, so pay attention. A couple of electronic releases to start in the form of Rounds by Fortet and Berlinette by Ellen Allien. Both from the more thoughtful end of the electronica spectrum, less crowd-pleasing, less straight-up danceable. Rounds mashing up pretty, glitchy acoustic folk sounds with lopsided beats and fractured atmospherics. Berlinette, all twitchy, busy rhythms, industrial and shoegaze guitars splashed around the place, stuttering, sliced-up vocal samples, this one skewing to the more club-friendly. Next, hip-hop. Well, sort of. The unavoidable, irresistible hit of the year sprung from this two-headed beast of a double album. Yeah, that hit was Hey Ya, so I'm talking Outcast and Speakerbox, The Love Below. An Andre disc and a Big Boy one, Paisley Park funk and kaleidoscopic, old-school flavoured hip-hop. Take your pick, really. A bit schizoid, a drop-off from Stankonia. Yeah, for both, probably. It lacks a real united front track like Bombs Over Baghdad or Miss Jackson, but you can't really talk 2003 without giving Outkast at least a mention. Ooh, a tough one to describe next. It's Prefab Sprout, or Paddy McAloon, and I Trawl the Megahertz. Weird, soundtracky, semi-spoken, mostly instrumental, orchestral, baroque stuff. There's really nothing quite like it. Listen to it for the 22-minute title track alone. A jazzy, John Barry-esque short story come chamber piece. Noirish, melancholic mood music, and quite lovely. Some side hustles. Here's a few. Loose Fur. Basically Wilco with an extra strength shot of Jim O'Rourke, which is probably why I favour this over the Wilco albums of the same period. More freewheeling, improvisatory and closer to O'Rourke's stuff circa the Rogue trilogy, and as you already know, I really like that stuff. And also, Everything is Good Here, Please Come Home by Angels of Light. This is Michael Guerra's project during Swan's extended millennial hiatus. Closer in tone, I think, and in feel to Jarbo era Swans circa White Light, Love of Life. It's good stuff. You'll know this already if you're a long-time Guerra fan, but being as 21st century Swans have, it seems, found a new audience, then this may have passed you by. I've talked about the band Swell at some length before, but this year's Whenever You're Ready was effectively the last outing for the proper band with both David Friel and Sean Kirkpatrick on board. And a beautiful, hazily familiar way for this classic lineup to bow out. Hooky, minimal, folky psychedelics. Friel's voice, the sedating balm, to Kirkpatrick's pumping, slurring drum jolts. The last real swell album for me, so something to be treasured. And so my final head-to-head dilemma for 2003. I had two albums from old heads, both of which I've talked about on the channel before. In fact, both artists have been subject to extensive primer videos here. In the end, though, a technicality helped finalise my decision, and this one, though it was an album released this year, leaned heavily on tracks from EPs released the year before. Got it yet? This is Send by Wire. And about 3/4 of this album formed part of the two Read and Burn EPs from 2002. So I figured that I should probably factor that in. Wire's 21st century reinvention started here, and Send also marks the end of Bruce Gilbert's tenure in the band. Tight, quick, abrasive, sharp, industrial-tinged compositions throughout. In the Art of Stopping is one of the great all-time opening tracks. Spent is diabolical, and 99.9 a simmering eruption to close. It's a great record. Check out part 2 of my Wire primer for more details and for my track highlights. So the other one, my default pick for 2003. If you're a long-time watcher of the channel, this should come as no surprise. It's John Cale and Hobo Sapiens. And I'm not going to go overboard on the scene setting here. Check out the John Cale 101 video. The link should be right there for more about John's musical journey up to this point. Because like Send, Hobo Sapiens is essentially year zero for John's 21st century iteration. It's the beginning of his active adoption of electronic and hip-hop forms and production styles, an obsession which he's followed through on right up to Mercy and Poptical Illusion, this and last year's albums, both marvellous meldings of John's more artful, literate writing style with a modern, experimental, studio pop sensibility. Always forward-looking, a serial D and reconstructor of his own work, his songs are never allowed to rest, to stand still, constantly rejigged and reconfigured for live work or recast on a whim. Yeah, check out John's 2007 live set, Circus Live, for a great demonstration of this, a selection of classic Cale numbers rendered almost unrecognisable in some instances. Hobo Sapiens was produced by Nick Franklin of electronic duo Lemon Jelly, John leaning heavily on Nick's studio nous to work up the bare bones songs into the form that they exhibit here. Programmed drums and samples abound. There's traffic noise, marching bands, street arguments, bicycle bells, odd keyboard noises and environmental sounds. It's a, for the time, a thoroughly modern sounding record whilst losing none of the grit and scope and oddness of John's overarching vision of music, of writing, art, politics, his place in the world. There are straight up pop songs here, the breezy canter of Reading My Mind, the wordless do-do-dos and kazoo breaks that accompany the Talking Heads float of Bicycle, and the velvety Dylan-esque saunter of Things. But Difficult John is in here too, in the dematerialised clank and thump of Things' evil twin, that's Things X, and in the terrifying ukulele, distorted vocals, and siren-esque samples of Letter from Abroad, a skin-freezing sketch of the chaos wrought by US-backed interventions on foreign soil. It's chilling lyrics here. John sings, "They're cutting their heads off in the soccer field, stretching their necks in the goal." Moving on, John's classicist side gets a stunning airing too at the centre of the album. The mournful viola, the smoothed-out trap beats and devastating falsetto he deploys in the heart-stopping Magritte, and the tumbling free association and gorgeous multi-tracked vocals of Archimedes, possibly the best track on the record. John's voice has never sounded more warmly persuasive and human than here on this track. It's pure magic. And the John of old sees the album out, viola in hand again, on the rise and fall of the glowering over her head, the song spiralling out of control into dissonant sawing and cacophony for its closing minute. As an introduction to John Cale, you can comfortably file this one right alongside Paris 1919 or Fear or music for a new society. The songwriting, the imagery, and the on-the-edge commitment is all there in Hobo Sapiens. But for me, it's the complete focus on the now that distinguishes it. There are so few musicians of his generation that still feel this hungry, this invested in following their instincts with utter disregard for their legacy. If it's 2003 or 2024, it makes no difference. This is who John Cale is. Old heads, new year. It's the way it works sometimes. I have covered these on the channel before, so excuse any repetition. What do you think about John Cale and Hobo Sapiens? And Send, for that matter, by Wire. Let me know what your pick is for 2003, and we'll chat about it down there. And away, the usual bump. Please give this video a thumbs up if you can. It really does help the channel, and it helps the video reach a lot of other people. And why not subscribe while you're at it too, if you've enjoyed what you've seen so far. And I'll leave things there. Please do take care, and I hope to see you on the channel again very soon. Bye for now.